Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. I am Paul Enos, CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association, filling in for Sam Shad. Today, a conversation with former United States Senator and candidate for governor Dean Heller. That's next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Hello, is this D&D Roofing?
Yes, it is. How may I help you?
You did such a great job on my roof. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner.
Oh, can I speak to your supervisor?
Sure.
How may I help you?
I love your work. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner. We're all owners. Well, that's why at D&D we work so hard to keep your home safe and sound.
Oh, no wonder.
D&D Roofing and Sheet Metal. Local, employee-owned, here for you.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Do you play golf? The Optimist Club of Reno is hosting the inaugural Ray Pezzanella Memorial Charity Golf Tournament on June 3rd at the Lake Course at Red Hawk Golf and Resort. For more information, go to pezgolf.org. Funds raised go to benefit local children's programs.
Nevada Newsmakers Studio is located at the headquarters of the Nevada Trucking Association. Motion and purpose are a truck's greatest virtue.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. We are back with former United States Senator and current candidate for governor, Dean Heller. Dean, welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. Always good to see you.
And good to be back on the show. Thank you.
Well, hey, and I'm sorry, I'm no Sam Shad, so, sorry folks, you got me today.
It's just the hair.
Hey, I'll take it. So we're a little less than 6 weeks away.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the campaign, where you see the campaign today. And when you're out there talking to Nevadans, talking about to the Republican primary voters, what are they concerned about?
There's a lot of frustration out there right now, especially in the Republican Party. A lot of frustrations out there because of the direction that this country is going. I mean, think about this. When I left Congress just a few years ago, gasoline was less than $2 a gallon. We didn't have high interest rates, and they were barely on the radar scene. We had no recession. We didn't have a war. We didn't have a pandemic. All of this has just occurred in the last couple of years. And obviously they're talking about it. I mean, you go outside the door here and start talking about $5 a gallon gasoline, that's impacting people. You look at food prices right now here in the state of Nevada, the average citizen here in the state of Nevada is now paying $3,500 more this year than they did last year on gasoline and food. And it's going to get worse. I mean, this isn't getting better, it's getting worse, and they don't see anything coming out of Washington, D.C. to make their lives any easier.
So what can we do in Carson City? What can you do as governor that is going to make a Nevadan's life easier, make it less expensive when they're going to the grocery store?
Well, my job is to give relief. You're not going to get relief out of Washington, D.C. They're just doing more of the same. As you know, they just passed another budget for $1.5 trillion, and every member of our delegation voted for that. That's $1.5 trillion more dollars that are going to be spent on top of the $30 trillion we already have in debt. That's a problem. And it's going to make the situation worse. And you think at 8.5% inflation, you stop and think about it. If they were calculating inflation the same way they did in the 80s, which by the way, they've adjusted it about a dozen times, we're talking 16% inflation right now. They say, the media wants to say it's 8.5% and it's bad. It's probably double that right now. And there's no relief out there. So what my job is and what a governor's job is to give relief to what Washington, D.C. is doing to you. So you better have an economic plan as you walk into those doors. Talking about businesses and what businesses need. Right now, small businesses, by the way, 60% in the state are still struggling. 60% of the small businesses in Nevada are still struggling to this day. What they need, they're overtaxed, they are overregulated, and they can't find employees. And if you want to give relief to Nevadans as a whole, you better solve those three problems. They're overtaxed, they're overregulated, and they can't find employees here in this state. And so as governor, my job is to give relief, whether that's tax cuts, whether that's regulatory relief, and of course trying to get people more educated, perhaps more technical education, so that we can get people into the workforce as quickly as possible.
Why do you think people want to work? I mean, why do you think we are having this huge labor shortage right now?
Because we have a welfare program right now here in the state of Nevada that is not a trampoline. In other words, my opinion of what welfare does is that you bounce it. Everybody's going to have problems, and I do believe that we ought to have a good program to get people back in the workplace. Problem is, it's become a hammock. Our welfare system is a hammock and not a trampoline. If you can make $20+ an hour in that hammock, that's where you're going to stay. But if the purpose of your system is to get people back in the workforce, like I said, a trampoline, bounce them right back in, give them the support and the help that they need during tough times. Because as you know, we all hit tough times from time to time. But we have developed a system, a social network now, that's more of a hammock instead of a trampoline. And that's why people aren't going back into the workforce.
Let's talk about the overregulation side, because I know, especially with COVID, I mean, there were a lot of times, when the governor was announcing new regulations new orders that were executive orders that were coming out. I mean, a lot of times I was confused, and I mean the guidance was either ambiguous or it was delayed until after the announcement. So it was a little difficult for me to talk to some of my folks and tell them what they had to do in my real job, not this volunteer one I'm doing right now. So, where do you think we are overregulated? And as governor, what would you do to roll some of those things back?
Well, the first thing I will do on day one is to roll back that executive order, the emergency order that shut down this state. It's still in place. And stop and think about this. This governor did everything California told him to do. He did everything California told him to do. Shut down the state, shut down churches, shut down schools. He did everything. And yet, the mortality rate here in Nevada was higher than Texas that did none of that. I mean, it is stark that what he was doing, what he was trying to do, only because California did it. That's where he got his marching orders, and I think, frankly, Nevadans are tired of it. So you're going to have to reverse all those policies. I mean, think about it for a minute. Where's the science behind keeping abortion clinics open and closing churches and schools? Half the time this guy has been governor, he's locked children out of their schools, locked them out. So of course we have second graders who can't read, third graders who can't write, fourth graders that can't do arithmetic. That's a fact. And I think when a child goes to kindergarten, he should be learning his colors. He or she should be learning their colors, their letters, and their numbers. That's what they should be learning. Instead, they're being bombarded with an agenda that's coming from the teachers union and the school district itself, and all of that has to come to an end.
Dean, we've seen hundreds of workers laid off because they weren't vaccinated. The university system is the one that comes to my mind. I think there were 400.
Well, how about Metro? How about Metro in Clark County? That was the first agency in Nevada. Joe Lombardo's Metro was the first agency in Nevada to require the vaccine mandate. I wish we had the sheriff of LA County in Clark County, not the sheriff we have now, because the sheriff of LA County says he refused to enforce the vaccine mandates, and yet we had a sheriff in Clark County that said, no, we're going to be the first agency to require it.
Now, and he's since rolled that back, right, for his credit. I mean,
because of science, right?
Well, I would hope it's because of science, or maybe it's just, hey.
He said the same thing the governor said. Time to give Nevada back some of their freedoms.
No.
I mean, think about that for a minute. That's not where your freedoms come from. They do not come from your elected officials. They come from God.
Hey, amen. You and I are in 100% agreement on that one. So, Senator, tell us the state of the race right now with 16 candidates, with about 5 who, I
work hard.
Yes. Yeah, working hard, and there's that resources and that kind of scrum. Where do you see the state of the race right now?
Well, first of all, like you said, there's 16 candidates in this race, and this to me is the Iowa caucuses. It is hard. It's tough when there's 16 candidates out there. Tough to raise money. I get all that. So it's all about who's going to get out there and get into homes and talk to these.
So what makes you different?
Voters.
What makes you different than Sheriff Lombardo and John Lee and Joey Gilbert?
Well, first of all, I show up. Lombardo doesn't show up to debates. He doesn't show up to forums. He won't walk.
I saw him at the Keystone one
with limits. He set the limits on what could be discussed in that forum. Needless to say, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You still got to get out. You still have to get in people's homes. You still better have the better ideas and the policies and be the better candidate. But the thing that differs me, I think, from the other candidates, I've served at the state level as a legislator and as Secretary of State, which I did for 12 years. And you can imagine the problems we had when we were Secretary of State. This was back in 2000 with
the
Bush,
Florida hanging chads.
Yeah. And it was a crisis of confidence in the election process in 2000. My job was to walk Nevada through that, which we did, and set up the new laws. For example, ballot harvesting. I was the one that passed the law on ballot harvesting, making it a felony. And I worked with Chris Giuliani on that. Think about that. A Republican and a Democrat, probably as far apart as you could possibly be, came together with a good idea that made ballot harvesting, and it was for decades in the state of Nevada until last session. Now they call it good government. But the difference between myself, I probably passed 25 pieces of legislation when I was in the legislature and when I was Secretary of State. Then I go to Washington, D.C., and I've got to deal with 535 colleagues, and I work with 3 different presidents, and I passed over 100 pieces of legislation when I was in Washington, D.C. Big issues, tax cuts, reducing regulations, helping our veterans, a lands legislation here in the state of Nevada so we could expand the footprints here in Washoe County and Clark County and across this state. But it's the ability to get things done, and I don't care where good ideas come from. If it's a good idea, it comes from a Republican, an Independent, or a Democrat, they know they can approach me. If it's not a good idea, I'll work with them to try to make it a good idea, and if I can't, obviously I'll vote against it or I will veto it. But it's somebody, the difference between myself and others is the amount of legislation and the work that I've been able to do on both sides of the aisle to make sure that Nevada's a better place to live.
All right, we are going to be right back on Nevada Newsmakers with former U.S. Senator and candidate for governor, Dean Heller.
The Do It Right guys at Nevada Heating have one mission. Your air conditioner breaks down today. We fix it today. Why sweat for days while your air is down when Nevada Heating can get the job done today and you can get cool again? For nearly 50 years, locally owned Nevada Heating has been getting the job done right. Call today at 323-5585 or see us online at nevadaheating.com.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful. Brian Culpa Photography was born in the rolling hills of Massachusetts, and now he can help you experience the stunning beauty of Nevada in a whole new way through the power of flight. Flying has always been a passion for Brian, and at Brian Culpa Photography, he can make your imagination soar. Brian has the creative mind and tools to tell your unique story. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. We are talking to former United States Senator and current candidate for governor, Dean Heller. So, we talked about inflation and the impact that that's having on Nevada.
Yeah.
What are some of those other key issues that you're focusing on in your campaign? And, when you're at these house parties, that people are coming to you and saying, hey, we need help here.
Right. I think that the person that's going to win this race is the one that's going to have the best ideas on 3 key issues. And one, of course, is they want jobs. Public wants jobs, they want better jobs. Two, they want better schools. And if you can discuss schools and what are necessary to get to obviously increase the value of their child's education, they're there, and they want safe neighborhoods. Better jobs, safer schools, better neighborhoods. That is what the average voter wants out there. Now, we have these other issues, and we've discussed this. The problems with our election process here in the state of Nevada, the pandemic, the lockdowns, the vaccine mandates and all that. Those are issues, obviously, that do come up. But you better be ready to discuss the economy. You better be ready to talk about what you're going to do to make schools better. And then, of course, our crime rate is through the roof. We got a 25% increase in violent crime down in Clark County in the last 5 years. And what are you going to do? If you have a sheriff down there, and I talk about this, that's open borders. You have a governor that's open borders. They both support and work together on making Clark County a sanctuary city. You have those kind of problems, you're going to have drug problems, and you're going to have gang problems in this state. And that's what we have right now. Think of the fentanyl deaths coming out of China, the distribution process of bringing that through the southern borders. Right now we're getting about 250,000 people crossing that southern border a month. Wait till they repeal Title 42. You're going to talk 1 million a month coming through, and that's going to be drugs and gangs that are going to be coming through that border. And if you are pro-open border, like this sheriff is, if you're pro-sanctuary city, if you go on NPR and talk about defunding the police as sheriff, you have problems. That's why the Nevada Police Union has supported me. They want someone that's tough on crime. They don't want someone that goes on NPR like AOC does, and like the Squad does.
Well, hey, it's
like
not
Joe
as great of a
does.
venue as Nevada Newsmakers, right?
But I'm just saying, that's the message. NPR, the Nevada Police Union, the NPU, the Nevada Police Union has endorsed my campaign because they want a governor that's tough on crime.
So you also mentioned education. I know that's a big deal. And I know a lot of people, people with Republican stripes have been really frustrated with what we've seen in education because it seems like there's always reforms that are traded for taxes. The taxes tend to stay while the reforms go away.
Right.
How are you going to be different?
Well, things have to change. I mean, this is a complicated issue that needs to be broken down into fundamental issues. And one of the most complicated issues we have right now is the school district in Clark County. That thing needs to be broken down. We need to break that school district down into more fundamental parts. I want a district in Boulder City. I want a district in Mesquite. I want a district in North Las Vegas. Let's get 4 or 5 school districts down there so that we can actually control it. If you're a parent today and you're dropping your child off at a school in Clark County, a public school, you're worried. You're nervous. So that's the beginning, is you got to start breaking these school districts down, making sure that parents are more involved in their education, making sure that CRT is not taught, making sure the sex education isn't taught between K and 3rd. This is what a governor does. And we don't have a governor that's leading right now. And that's why Nevada needs to change. And I will say this also, I don't think every child has to go to college. Not every child needs a college education. Not every child who graduates, but
hey, I love it if my kid was a plumber.
The point is that college education should be available to anybody and everybody that wants to attend. But if you don't want to, there should be training out there. There should be training out there. I don't think every child needs to go to some liberal university, come out with $100,000 in debt, and work at some food chain, restaurant. That's not what's good for this country right now. We need plumbers. We need truckers. We need builders. We need welders. And you do that, you can earn 6 figures after a couple of years of training and take care of your home, take care of your family, and you can have 2 cars in the driveway. You don't have to go to college. It's not necessary.
Hey, you're absolutely right. What I love about the mining industry too. We're going to be right back with former United States Senator and current candidate for governor, Dean Heller, on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker, and you've got a lot of convention space and meeting breakout space for people. Tell us about what's available.
Well, we can handle a group up to about 250, and anywhere as small as 10 or 15. So it really depends on what you're looking for, what the customer's looking for. We're open to anything. It's a beautiful drive, and if you live in South Reno, it's probably about 30-35 minutes, so it's real easy to get to. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
We are back on Nevada Newsmakers with former United States Senator and candidate for governor Dean Heller. Senator, we talked about election integrity issues, and it's kind of all over the board. If you say one thing, you're seen as a crazy conspiracy theory. We've seen a lot in the paper on that.
Yeah.
So you did mention ballot harvesting.
Right.
That's something that's been a felony.
Right.
So as governor, what can you do to ensure that folks see our elections as fair?
Yeah, and again, I go back to the 2000 election with Bush v. Gore. I was Secretary of State at the time, and that crisis was real. And I had to walk the state of Nevada through that, changing the laws, everything necessary, making ballot harvesting a felony and all that so that people were more comfortable. And now I have to do that again. This crisis of confidence that we have in our election system and policies throughout the state of Nevada is real. And the fact that you don't have to show ID when you go to vote, the fact that you have ballot harvesting now, which was a felony for decades and now it's considered good government, the fact that you have vote by mail, I call it cheat by mail. I mean, think about that. The ability for you to send for ballot harvesting to lose the chain of
once the envelope is separated, right?
Correct,
that's
it's like sending money through the mail. Who sends money through the mail? And that's what you're doing when
my grandma used to, right?
But needless to say, those are the things that have to change. And I'm going to try to do that by executive order. I'll get pushback from the legislature. I maybe even have the courts upset with me in trying to achieve voter integrity here in the state of Nevada. But I'm going to get there. And if I can do that as governor, I will. And if I have to do it through the ballot, I'll do that also. Same as the commerce tax. Commerce tax is a ridiculous tax out there.
And hey, you'll get no disagreement from me on that. I still have my wounds on that.
It failed 70-30 on the ballot.
We had 72.
We had a Republican governor and a Republican legislature thrust it on the Nevada businesses.
So let's bring that up because that's a question that I have. Why should people trust a Republican governor, a Republican legislature to hold the line on taxes?
Right.
Because that hasn't been the history.
Correct, and that's a very good point. In the 21st century, the two largest tax increases in Nevada has come from a Republican governor. Think about that. Democrats don't have to raise taxes in Nevada because they just wait for the next Republican governor to come along. And this is why Republicans are so frustrated in the state of Nevada. They don't expect the Democratic governor to be aligned with them, but they certainly do expect Republican governors to be there with them. And yet time and time again, they put in a Republican governor. And that's the hardest thing that I have to prove to the voters here in the state of Nevada, that as your governor, I will not raise taxes. In fact, I will have the largest tax cut in the history of Nevada when I become the next governor here of this state. That's the only way.
What are you cutting, and how are you going to do it if you don't have buy-in from the legislature?
Well, and it's going to be a battle, but at least that's the message that you have to have and the fight that you're willing to get involved in. Obviously, I want to eliminate the commerce tax. I want to reduce the sales tax here in the state of Nevada. You know that government loves inflation because if something costs $100 and you have a 5% sales tax on it, and you go back the next day and it's $120 for the same product, that tax goes from $5 to $6. That's a 20% increase in sales tax that goes to your government. Why should we be growing government at the pains of the Nevada families today? And that's what we're doing. Nevada's flush. Clark County's flush. City of Las Vegas.
A lot of federal money coming from.
A lot of federal government. Yes, I agree with that. But I want to get rid of that 20%. I want to cut the sales tax here in Nevada, 25%. I think that's necessary in order to get this economy back on its feet, get people out there shopping again, try to reduce the stress that they have in their everyday lives. I also want to address the gasoline tax. The biggest expense right now for the trucking industry is their fuel. What are we going to do to give, and by the way, that's 90% of goods and services that move around this state.
95.
95, okay. I got to be careful who I'm talking to here. But needless to say, their biggest expense today is fuel. How are we going to give them relief? And we need to figure out how, at least at a Nevada level, because they're not doing anything in Washington, D.C. All they're giving you is wars and pandemics and recessions. How are we going to give relief here in the state of Nevada? And I want to look at the gasoline tax that we have here in the state of Nevada and figure out how we can give relief to the average family here in the state of Nevada, and obviously the trucking industry, to make sure the goods and services can be moved around.
Well, hey, we're absolutely going to have that conversation. Hey, Senator, thank you so much for being here. We'll be right back on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company, with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
Because of UMC, I'm putting my free time to good use.
Because of UMC, she keeps me on my toes.
Because of UMC and this guy, I'm here.
UMC, the highest level of care in Nevada.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Don't miss the $200,000 Big Cash giveaways at Tamarack Casino through May 28th. One $10,000 Big Cash winner guaranteed every Saturday, plus over $60,000 in grand prize giveaways. The $200,000 Big Cash giveaways at Tamarack Casino.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day at NevadaNewsmakers.com. You can also check our archive going back to 2005 on our website. Again, NevadaNewsmakers.com. We'll see you on the next show.